You ever walk past a pile of junk and think, that could be something beautiful? Most people don't. But if you're here, maybe you see things differently. Welcome to ARKAN Aesthetic Studio, where discarded becomes dreamland. In this video, we're exploring 15 real, rustic, and totally magical DIY ideas to turn even the tiniest garden into a fairytale oasis, using things you probably already have. We've included timestamps, so jump to what inspires you. And if anything sparks a question, drop it in the comments. I'm here. If this resonates, recreate it. Make it yours. Start small, dream wild. To some, this might just be another garden video, but for me, it's a lifeline. Every like, every comment, every subscribe keeps this dream breathing. You're not just supporting content, you're helping a family build something real. Thank you for being part of this. One, Whimsical recycled planters for enchanted gardens. There is a quiet kind of wonder that happens when you stop trying to control the garden and simply let it tell its story. It begins not with a purchase, but with a rediscovery. An old drawer, a teapot long retired, a tin can that once held something ordinary. In the soft hush of afternoon light, these forgotten things bloom anew. Here, amid the rustling leaves and mossy ground, a vintage table becomes a canvas of life. Drawers once meant for linens now cradle wildflowers. Glass jars and broken baskets hold blossoms as if they were meant to all along. The butterflies come without invitation, drawn not to order, but to the quiet invitation of color and fragrance. This is a garden made not from perfection, but from patience. From looking at what's broken and asking, what can you become? A ceramic jug becomes a cradle for violets. A pair of worn-out boots springs with petunias and trailing ivy. An antique birdcage opens not to release a songbird, but to hold the gentle rustle of leaves and vines. Letting go of symmetry, we find soul. When we use what we already have, wooden crates, chipped mugs, weathered tins, we begin to garden not just with our hands, but with memory. Each planter holds more than soil, it holds stories. You don't need much to begin. A table, a shadowed corner, the light of a single afternoon. Find what's been overlooked and let it grow. Layer textures. Let the colors speak for themselves. Invite whimsy, even if it's a little wild. And when you place your planters on moss, on stone, under a tree, do so slowly, tenderly, as though you're setting the stage for something magical to happen. Because it will. In this kind of garden, there are no mistakes. There are only transformations. And maybe, just maybe, when the last light of day softens the edges of your creation, you'll feel it too, that hush of enchantment. The sense that something ancient and gentle is watching with approval. Let the fairies find their way home. You've already begun the spell. Two, rustic vertical garden wall ideas with pallets. There's a quiet kind of wisdom in things that grow upward. In spaces once forgotten, blank walls, narrow patios, corners left behind, life begins to climb, slowly, steadily, beautifully. With nothing more than reclaimed wood and a bit of patience, a vertical garden comes to life. An old pallet, worn by time, leans gently against the wall as if resting after a long journey. Its surface, imperfect and sun-bleached, becomes a stage for color, scent, and texture. From between its slats, green leaves emerge, some soft and spilling, others bold and bright, each one growing toward the light like a whispered wish. This is not about complexity. It's about care, about placing a simple planter here, a terracotta pot there, and allowing nature to do what it knows best, bloom without needing to be told how. Succulents nestle in tight rows, their forms sculpted and slow. Jasmine trails downward like a secret revealed. Mint brushes the air, releasing its fragrance with every touch of wind. These little gestures of growth transform a simple palette into a vertical meadow, a quiet revolution of space. When you walk past this garden wall, it doesn't shout. It hums. It invites. It reminds you that even a single square meter can become a home for beauty if you let it. And it's practical, too. For those with small yards, apartment balconies, or a modest patch of morning sun, this kind of garden is not just decoration, it's life made accessible. It turns walls into windows. It turns structure into softness. And best of all, it turns what might have been thrown away into something living, layered, and loved. So find a palette. Let the wood speak. Tuck a seedling into every gap, and let it be uneven. Let it sprawl. Let the vines go where they will. Perfection has no place here, only intention and warmth. In time, your garden will grow not just upward, but inward, filling your space with peace, and your heart with something that feels ancient, real, and entirely your own. Three, charming rustic walkways using gravel and timber. There is something quietly sacred about a garden path. It doesn't just take you from one place to another. It invites you to slow down, to wander, to notice. It is not a road, it's a rhythm beneath your feet. Here, nestled among ferns and blooms, rough timber meets gravel in a gentle dance. Weathered wood, softened by time and sun, lays itself across a bed of pale stones, guiding your steps like the verses of a forest lullaby. The path bends slightly, not by accident, but with intention. As if to say, beauty is not found in straight lines, but in gentle turns and unexpected pauses. Wildflowers peek from the edges, leaning playfully over the sides as if greeting you along the way. Moss gathers in the quiet spaces between the stones, bringing softness where there could have been silence. Everything feels handmade, not because it had to be, but because it should be. Built by hands that understand the value of imperfection. This kind of garden walkway doesn't need expensive materials. It begins with what you can find. Reclaimed wood, leftover gravel, old logs to line the edge. What matters is the feeling of grounding, of guiding, of growing. Even in the deepest shade, dappled sunlight finds its way to the stones. And in those shifting shadows, the path becomes more than practical. It becomes poetic, a place where your thoughts can trail behind you, like the leaves brushing your ankles. If you're looking to transform a small space, consider this. A path can make a garden feel endless. It invites exploration, even if it only curves around the corner. It gives structure without stealing softness. And above all, it becomes a journey, one that begins the moment you step outside. So build a trail where you need it least, but where your soul might need it most. And let it lead not just through the garden, but into a slower way of seeing. Four vintage furniture planter hacks for small gardens. Not all garden magic begins in the soil. Sometimes it starts in the attic, or by the roadside, or in a quiet corner of the house where old furniture waits to be remembered. With just a whisper of imagination, an abandoned cabinet, a cracked vanity, or a dresser with creaky drawers becomes something more. A sanctuary for green things, a stage for sunlight, a poem written in roots and blossoms. An old cupboard, once holding linens or dishes, now cradles rows of rosemary and thyme in tiny tin pots. The white paint peels softly at the edges, kissed by time and weather, revealing the layers of its life. Beneath, wildflowers curl around its legs, as if welcoming it into the garden family. And just beyond that, a vanity, its sink long silent, now blooms with lavender and succulents. The basin, once filled with water, now spills color. Cracks in the paint become part of its charm. It doesn't try to hide its age, it wears it with grace. Then there's the dresser, set in a sunny patch of lawn. Its drawers pulled open like breaths, filled with earth and marigolds. The flowers tumble over the edges, bold and joyful. Ivy creeps along its side, and birds gather nearby, drawn to the life pulsing from something once forgotten. This is more than recycling, it's restoration of memory and meaning. A form of storytelling you can touch and tend to. No expensive tools, no need for perfection. Only a willingness to see furniture not as discarded, but as dormant, waiting to be rooted, reimagined, revived. If space is limited, let height be your friend. Let drawers and shelves hold more than clutter. Let them hold life. And if your furniture is chipped, let it be. If it leans a little, tuck a stone beneath one leg. Every imperfection adds soul. Every scar tells a better story than something store-bought ever could. So look again at what you already have. Open a drawer, clear out a cabinet, dust off an old sink. Then, slowly, carefully, plant something inside. Because sometimes, the most magical gardens begin not with a seed, but with a second chance. Five lush tropical plants for micro-garden paradises. Not every paradise needs to be vast. Some are born quietly, in corners, in the space between two fences, in a narrow patch beside a wall, in places small enough to hold in your arms, but lush enough to hold your breath. The beauty of tropical plants is that they don't just grow, they gather. They layer, they lean, they envelop. In a tiny backyard, ferns unfurl beneath bold banana leaves. Heart-shaped foliage stretches toward the light, drinking in every drop of morning sun. And somewhere between the shadows, a bird of paradise begins to bloom, fiery, upright, unapologetically alive. This is not a garden you walk through. It's one you step into, slowly. You let the leaves brush your shoulders, the soil hold your steps. You forget the fence behind you and feel, for a moment, like you've entered another world. Even the mist in the air feels deliberate, curling upward from the ground like nature exhaling. Large elephant ears catch drops of dew on their surface. Monstera leaves fan out, their intricate cuts and holes forming lace made of green. And recycled stone planters cradle their roots, not for symmetry, but for grounding. If your space is small, let it grow wild. Let it rise instead of spread. Let vines climb your walls and broad leaves shadow your path. You don't need straight lines or perfect order here. You only need intention, and plants that make you feel like you've been transported far from home while standing exactly where you are. Use shade-loving varieties in the corners. Mix textures, the waxy with the feathery, the trailing with the upright. Don't be afraid to let it feel overgrown. That's the point. A micro-jungle doesn't just look magical. It feels safe, enclosed, alive. And sometimes, in the middle of the city, on a busy afternoon, that's all you need. A soft green echo of the rainforest. Close enough to touch, quiet enough to heal. Six, DIY Tranquil fountains from salvaged pots. There is something ancient about the sound of water trickling over stone. A language older than words. A lullaby that has always existed, waiting patiently to be heard again in quiet gardens and handmade corners. In this scene, a simple clay jug is tilted ever so slightly atop a stack of stone, its mouth open, releasing a gentle stream into a lily-filled basin below. The water slips down moss-covered edges, catching the sunlight like threads of silver. Around it, ferns unfurl, wildflowers lean in, and the whole space feels cradled by the earth itself. This kind of beauty doesn't need perfection. It doesn't need polished marble or imported fountains. Just a salvaged pot, a soft flow, and intention. Elsewhere, in a tucked-away garden corner, a galvanized metal basin hums with soft ripples. Bamboo spouts arch out gently, their hollow stems releasing arcs of water that meet in a quiet kiss. Dragonflies hover. Sunlight glints on the surface. The fountain stands not as a centerpiece, but as a secret. A whisper of peace between pebbles and shade. And then, there is the aged urn, cracked just enough to be beautiful, its surface weathered by rain and sun. From its center, water rises slowly, humbly, and spills over in a curtain of stillness. The sound is subtle but deep, a rhythm that steadies breath. Around it, palms sway and stones gather like old friends. The magic here isn't just visual. It's sonic, it's emotional, and above all, it's accessible. With a few reclaimed materials, an old pot, a basin, a small pump, you can build a sanctuary that hums quietly beside you. One that cools the air in summer and soothes the spirit in stillness. Let moss grow freely. Let the stones be uneven. Let light and water do what they've always done. Bring calm to chaos, flow to stillness, and presence to the moment. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary transformations are the ones that require the least control. Just water, earth, and the gentle choice to listen. Seven, magical recycled lights for night garden glow. As dusk drapes its quiet hush across the garden, the magic doesn't end. it begins. One by one, the lights appear, not from store-bought bulbs or polished fixtures, but from hands that saw beauty in what others forgot. A mason jar, once dusty on a shelf, now holds a universe of stars. Hung tenderly from tree branches, they flicker with soft golden warmth, each one glowing with a life of its own. Some wide, others slender, the shapes don't match, but that's the charm. Their light spills gently onto the forest floor, catching the edges of leaves and the curves of a path that winds into dream. Along the fence line, recycled tin cans bloom into light. Tiny cutout petals and patterns glow from within, as if lit by secret fireflies. The breeze makes them sway, casting dancing shadows on nearby posts. It's humble, yes, but enchanting. Real. Not designed to impress, but to feel. And in the heart of a leafy nook, where palms stretch toward the stars, glass bottles shimmer in every shade, emerald green, amber gold, and clear moonlight. Hung with twine, anchored with driftwood, each one carries a soft light that paints the space in calm hues. A bench sits beneath them, waiting, inviting someone to pause, to breathe, to listen to the silence and the rustling leaves. What makes these lights special isn't how bright they shine, but how gently they glow. They speak of time and care, of stories retold through recycled forms. And in that, there's an invitation to make your own. Use what you have. Empty jars, old cans, glass bottles from nights shared. Drill tiny holes, string fairy lights, add hooks or twine. Let your hands shape what your heart longs to see. Because when you light your garden with things once forgotten, you don't just brighten the night, you honor it. And suddenly, your backyard becomes more than space. It becomes a story told in glimmers. A fairy tale lit not by magic, but by your own quiet hands. Eight, reclaimed pergola frames for cozy garden nooks. Some spaces don't need walls to feel like a room. A few beams of weathered wood, a tangle of climbing blooms, and suddenly the air itself feels held, sheltered by intention, softened by time. In the heart of a garden path, an arched pergola rises, not grand, but grounded. Made from reclaimed timber, its frame tells stories of old barns, fallen trees, and forgotten fences. The texture is raw, imperfect, beautifully so. Bougainvillea drapes across its shoulders, jasmine curls between beams, and sunlight filters down in broken shimmer. It feels like a forest might breathe here. Farther on, another nook appears, more humble, but no less magical. Driftwood posts lean together to form a quiet shelter, wrapped in flowering vines. Beneath it, log stools circle a low table. It's a place for slow tea, or a sketchbook, or silence. Wildflowers push gently through gravel. The breeze carries petals past your feet. Everything here feels hand-built and heart-kept. And then, tucked between tall hedges, a dining space glows in gold light. Reclaimed tree trunks hold up lanterns and hanging herbs. A wooden table stretches below, long enough for laughter and late conversations. The chairs don't match, the pots are repurposed, but the feeling is whole, complete. Like summer gathered itself in this corner and decided to stay. These pergolas aren't about perfection or planning. They're about pause, about marking out a space where nature and memory meet. To build one is simpler than it seems. Old beams, found wood, or even thick branches can become structure. Add vines, wisteria, morning glory, honeysuckle, and let them climb freely. Let them take over. Let nature write its part. Because in the end, what you're creating isn't just shade or structure. It's sanctuary. A place where the garden doesn't just grow, but embraces. Where even silence feels welcome, and every breeze brings a little more magic. Nine, timeless garden borders with natural stones. Not all beauty in a garden blooms. Some of it lies steady, low to the ground, shaped by hand, aged by sun, and cradled in moss. These garden borders, made from natural stone, feel as though they've always belonged. Each one carefully placed, not for perfection, but for presence. The rounded river rocks, worn smooth by time, curve softly around the beds like gentle arms holding blossoms. Even in their stillness, they seem alive, catching morning light, soaking in the day's warmth, inviting the touch of creeping time and velvet moss. In the heart of a winding path, cobbled borders rise in small arcs, dividing gravel from greenery. They do not shout for attention. They simply anchor. The textures, the colors, muted grays, warm earth browns, pale flecks of lichen, add a quiet richness that no store-bought edging ever could. And that's the secret. These borders are not just functional. They are emotional. They remind us of old gardens, of forest trails, of something built not just for today, but for seasons to come. Creating them yourself is an act of patience and love. You don't need uniform stones. In fact, it's the mismatched ones, the irregular, the oddly shaped, that give the most character. Lay them by hand. Let the lines curve and wander. Allow nature to soften the gaps with moss or tiny violets. Over time, the garden will weave itself into the stones, making them a part of its memory. In one corner, you might raise a circular bed with stacked granite, a tiny mound for herbs or flowers. Elsewhere, a single row of fieldstones can gently trace a border between path and plant. And beneath your feet, cobbled pebbles create a rhythm, like stepping across a quiet story told in stone. There is no rush. Let the work be slow. Let your hands find the right shapes. Let the ground settle and the border sink into place, as if it were always meant to be there. Because a garden with stone is a garden with soul. And in the stillness of stone, we often find the truest kind of magic. Ten, storytelling garden accents with upcycled finds. Some gardens are tended with shovels, others with stories. Nestled among petals and old roots, these upcycled accents whisper tales not found in any book. They're gathered from forgotten corners, from dusty sheds and attic shelves. Each one brought back to life, not polished, but cherished just as they are. Look closely and you'll find an old watering can turned whimsical sculpture, its rust now a part of the garden's patina. Around it, painted stones like storybook mushrooms, and broken bits of mirror scattered like pieces of fairy glass, catching light, reflecting sky, mirroring wonder. A small wooden sign reads "Fairy Stop," as if you're passing through a realm only the heart can truly enter. Elsewhere, there's a quiet corner where cracked clay pots sit like relics of an ancient tale. Hanging on the fence, rusted garden tools, well worn, gently curved by time, become art. And though the signs carved in weathered wood are worn by sun and rain, the messages remain, imperfect but enduring. Perhaps the most powerful part of all this is the invitation to not throw things away too quickly. That chipped teacup? It could become a bird feeder. The mirror with a broken corner? Let it reflect flowers instead of flaws. An old bike wheel? A trellis in disguise. And then there are the gnomes. Each one different, each one placed with love. They stand not just as decoration, but as guardians of joy. There's humor in their faces, and magic in the idea that someone, somewhere, decided to give a small ceramic figure a place in the sun. What makes these spaces enchanting isn't perfection, it's intention. It's the idea that beauty can be built from what we already have. That a cracked pot still holds soil. That a broken tool still carries story. And that even the smallest, simplest objects can become part of something truly alive. So go ahead, make a corner of your garden a little odd, a little playful. Let it reflect you. Let it speak with textures, with color, with whimsy. Let it grow stories alongside the flowers. Because in a garden like this, every object becomes a character. And every character has something worth telling. Layered rustic garden beds with wood and stone. Not all gardens are flat. Some rise like stories, layer by layer. Imagine a slope once forgotten, dry, patchy, overlooked. Then imagine hands, yours, building it back up, one log, one stone, one flowering root at a time. This is where rustic design meets quiet ambition. This is where nature is invited to climb. The paths here don't hurry. They wind gently upward, flanked by railings made from weathered limbs, shaped by years of sun and time. The stairs aren't perfect. Some steps dip, some slant. But that's the beauty. The uneven rhythm reminds us, this isn't manufactured. It's made. With every step, something blooms. Calendula peeking from the seams, thyme and mint brushing your legs, their scent rising with the morning warmth. Raised beds crafted from salvaged would curve like amphitheaters for wildflowers, while stone walls hold the soil like old friends holding secrets. Everything fits, though nothing matches. If you've ever struggled with a sloped yard or an awkward hill, this design offers more than beauty, it offers invitation. You don't need pristine lumber or perfect blueprints. Just vision and a few afternoons. Reclaimed timber, driftwood, branches from last winter's pruning. They become edges and frames. Flat stones from a walk in the woods become stair risers. Each material carries memory. Each placement becomes personal. Terracing helps manage water flow and erosion. But more than that, it slows you down. You pause at each level, tend a plant, breathe deeper. The vertical garden format also opens up more growing space, perfect for herbs, ground covers, and color bursts. There's something deeply calming about repetition. Step, soil, flower. And something even more sacred when those patterns are shaped by hand, guided by feeling rather than formula. So if you're dreaming of transformation, look to your slope. Let it become a canvas, not to control, but to partner with. Let it rise gently underfoot. Let it hold your plants. Let it hold your time. Because in a garden that climbs like this, you don't just plant, you ascend. stylish rain barrels from reused drums. In the hush of late afternoon, where sunlight slips between garden leaves and kisses the earth with amber warmth, a quiet kind of magic gathers, recycled, rooted, and full of purpose. Here, rain is not just water, it's a gift. And tucked into the corners of these whimsical gardens are barrels once forgotten, now reborn with charm and intention. A once ordinary blue plastic drum is wrapped in wooden slats, softened by climbing vines. It stands beside tidy vegetable beds, blending into its surroundings as if it had always been there. It tells a simple truth: beauty begins with care, not cost. And the most sustainable gardens are often the most soulful. Deeper in the forest's edge, a vintage wine barrel rests beneath a hand-built wooden awning. Rain slips from the roof and into the waiting wood, guarded by moss-covered stones and shaded by ferns. It doesn't demand attention, it invites it. It's not just a container, but a character in the garden's unfolding tale. Functional, yet full of quiet folklore. Elsewhere, in a gravel-lined nook, a metal drum shines like a silver moon, its surface hand-painted with floral motifs that echo the real blossoms nearby. A line of potted lavender, daisies, and marigolds gather around it like friends. The rain barrel becomes a centerpiece, not hidden, but celebrated. Proof that utility doesn't have to come at the expense of beauty. These are not just water tanks. They are sculptures of sustainability. You can make your own too, from drums, wine casks, paint, or scrap wood. Add a spout, add a vine, add your own touch. Because the fairy garden isn't always made of glitter and wings. Sometimes, it's shaped with reclaimed tools, with patience, with rainwater saved for thirsty roots. It's the kind of garden where every element serves a purpose, and every purpose carries a story. And in the silence after the rain, you might just hear it whisper back. Handmade log benches for whimsical gardens. In the quiet corners of a garden, where sunlight filters through dancing leaves and the air hums softly with life, a simple wooden bench can become a place of deep enchantment. Let's begin with a curved seat made from stacked logs, delicately embraced by blooming vines and overhanging branches. The natural wood is softened by linen cushions in muted tones, offering a place not just to sit, but to slow down. Set beside a gentle pond, its surface barely rippling, this is more than a bench, it's a small sanctuary. One that invites you to bring a book, or nothing at all, and simply breathe in the stillness. Creating something like this doesn't require perfection. Gather leftover wood from a tree that once stood in your yard. Sand it just enough to avoid splinters, but let it speak with its knots and curves. Add fabric or cushion scraps for comfort. Let nature do the rest. Let vines crawl, let shade fall. Further along, under warm fairy lights strung like stars in low orbit, another handmade wonder appears. A stone circle marks the heart of this garden glade. On it, rustic log stools surround two carved benches, each crafted from salvaged trunks with bark still clinging lovingly to the sides. It's a space that calls people to gather, to share stories, laughter, or simple silence under the evening sky. This kind of furniture doesn't come from a catalog. It comes from curiosity, from craft, from the desire to create spaces that feel alive. Even a single split log, carved carefully and laid beneath a flowering tree, becomes a throne of peace. Look closely. The moss is starting to grow at its feet, tiny ferns curling in nearby. Nature knows when something belongs. The grain of the wood, the gentle cracks, these are not flaws but memories. And when placed thoughtfully, they tell a story much older than ours. If you've ever felled a tree or known someone who has, perhaps there's a remnant waiting to be shaped into something meaningful. Or maybe a fallen trunk on a woodland walk will become your next inspiration. With just basic tools and a bit of imagination, the rawest materials can be transformed into comfort, beauty, and magic. This is what Rustic Fairy Garden DIY is all about. Not replication, but reclamation. Taking what was once discarded or forgotten and turning it into something soulful. So next time you dream of escape, remember, you don't have to leave your home. You only need to carve out a place for stillness, shaped by your hands, softened by nature, and open to wonder. DIY rustic garden rooms with reclaimed charm. Beneath a veil of vines, where shadows dance on pond water and time drips like dew, someone once built a bench from stacked logs. Not with blueprints, but with intuition. The curve of the seat follows the gentle bend of nature itself, softened by cushions in muted linens, kissed by blooms that wrap lovingly around the frame. It's the kind of place that silences the world, where one might sip morning tea beside a lily pond and listen, truly listen, to what the earth whispers. You don't need perfection to create this. Only a few reclaimed logs, a vision, and a willingness to let nature guide your hands. Consider layering logs like puzzle pieces, making use of any odd cuts you've collected over the seasons. Add a few trailing plants, roses, jasmine, or whatever you can convince to climb, and let softness meet wood and stone. Just a few steps beyond, a circle of log stools encircles rustic benches carved from salvaged timber. Suspended lights gleam like stars caught in string, making twilight feel like a celebration. There's something deeply ancient about the setup, something that feels like it was always meant to be there. As if people once gathered under these trees to share stories long before any of us arrived. It's a reminder that gathering places don't need polish. They need soul. You can recreate this using only what your hands can lift. Tree stumps as seats, reclaimed stone or brick beneath, and lights overhead for magic when the sun has gone. And then there is the purest of all, the bench hewn from a single split log. Its bark still clings to the side, its heartwood exposed like memory carved in grain. Nestled beneath a flowering tree, it sits quietly, moss at its feet, as if it's always been there. This is not furniture. This is poetry you can sit on. To make one like this, begin with a large fallen trunk. Slice it open. Carve gently. Let the wood speak, and do less than you think. Seal it with a natural finish or leave it raw to weather into silvery age. Place it where the light filters through leaves, and let it remind you that elegance is often rough around the edges. Tiny recycled greenhouses for magical plant growth. In a quiet garden corner, where the wind only whispers and butterflies come to rest, a tiny glass house sits on a rustic wooden table. It wasn't bought, It was found, assembled, and imagined into existence. Once an old fish tank, now a cloche greenhouse cradling baby herbs and sprigs of green, misted with dew and glowing under morning sun. Monarchs dance along the roof, drawn to the warmth and life blooming inside. This is a perfect example of giving something old a magical new purpose. With just a bit of soil, sunlight, and patience, even the simplest glass box can become a sanctuary of growth. If you're wondering where to start, don't overthink it. Begin with what you already have, perhaps an unused aquarium or a storage case. Add drainage at the base, layer it with rich potting mix, and let nature weave its wonders. The beauty lies not in the perfection, but in the transformation. Not far away, nestled among mossy stones and winding vines, an A-frame greenhouse rises like a storybook shelter. Its walls, clear panels framed by reclaimed wood, catch the light and cradle young seedlings in a world all their own. The path that leads to it is lined with wooden planks and speckled with greenery, as if laid by forest gnomes or tiny woodland hands. There's something deeply grounding about this build. It's part utility, part dream, a structure that gives back more than it takes. To recreate something similar, you don't need pristine tools or a grand plan. Salvaged materials like plexiglass sheets or even old storm windows can be repurposed. Let your intuition guide the design. Anchor it where your plants will receive morning light, and remember to leave space for them to breathe and stretch. This kind of DIY project not only nurtures your plants, but nourishes your own sense of connection with the earth. And then, perhaps the most enchanting of all, stands a miniature greenhouse built from old wooden windows. Surrounded by blooms in gentle purples and yellows, it glows golden as the sun begins to set. Inside, rows of seedlings reach upward, warmed by the lingering heat of the day. This isn't just gardening, it's storytelling through structure. Each pane of reclaimed glass holds memories of a past life, now reframing new beginnings. This design invites you to pause, to savor the slow rhythm of growth. You can build one just like this using second-hand windows and a simple frame. The charm lies in its imperfections, in the scratches, the foggy corners, the latches that creak. It becomes a living relic, holding not just plants, but hope. In a world that moves too fast, these tiny greenhouses offer us a way to slow down, to create something beautiful, functional, and full of soul from what's already around us. They whisper a quiet truth, that even the smallest spaces, with love and a little effort, can become worlds of wonder. If this video meant something to you, please know that subscribing means the world to me. You're not just supporting content, you're supporting a dream that keeps my family going. Thank you, truly. I'd also love to hear from you. What did you enjoy the most? Is there anything I could do better to keep inspiring or simply entertaining you? Your feedback helps this channel grow with heart and purpose. Let me know in the comments. I read every one.